You're giving government officials the right to take anybody's land and not pay them, in the hope that they will only do it to white people. But now let's say you do it to Swanepoel. Then Julius has spoken about this. If the ANC finds out that a person has donated to an opposition party, that company, that entrepreneur is dead.
Those who give you money controls what you do.
No, they don't. Not us.
Not you.
No, not us. Not us. That's why we declare them. One of the reasons we're fighting so hard for the land issue is that people who have nowhere to stay have been forced to become illegal occupants of land in their own country.
King David Studio Podcast.
It's a political season in South Africa, and we've decided to do this thing where we host political parties. I've had Ntate Musiwa Lekota here, and I've had Ntate Kenneth Meshwe and many others. And today we have, they call him a small party. I don't know how he's small because he doesn't even have a seat in parliament. We Rise Mzansi, who made the news yesterday, rather this morning. Wabuzi, are you well?
I am well, especially seeing this headline.
Yeah.
It says, DA losing Mzansi fight. I'm glad to hear.
What do you think that means? From just reading the headline, based on what you know with your challenges with
there is a context with it because the DA has chosen to be unhappy with us.
Yeah.
We don't understand why they should be unhappy with us, but they've been unhappy with us. And yesterday we had a very successful launch of the Gauteng Recovery Plan. It's called Tsoga GP. And so I think that is why, because we are unbowed and uncowed and we steaming ahead. And our premier candidate, Vuiswa, is looking radiant.
Yeah, it's
on the front page.
It's a great picture, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no, she's awesome.
Yeah. You're talking about 600,000 jobs. That's probably part of what she spoke about yesterday.
It is, yeah.
What does that look like? What exactly is that? Because sometimes phrases like that sounds like just electioneering.
Yeah, I know. Look, I mean, people have come up with all sorts of numbers. I was at another event last night and somebody mentioned 4 million jobs.
Whoa. They're trying to beat your 600,000.
Yesterday morning, no, we hadn't even said 600,000. Yesterday morning, there was another political party that said 3 million jobs in 6 months. So we try and be realistic about everything we say, and some people get annoyed with us because we sound too modest or we're not serious. But Gauteng is in the top 5 economies on the African continent, just Gauteng alone. This province has the capacity to create that number of jobs, 600,000. And this is in 5 years. And the reason we believe this is doable is because there are certain basic things that can be done nationally, but also in this province that would unlock the economic opportunity.
Give me an example.
I'll just give a couple of examples. The first is, you know that our physical infrastructure is crumbling, right?
That's true.
We have water problems, not because we haven't had water at all before and now I've got too many people. Even the existing infrastructure is old and is crumbling. We need to replace it, right? It's not just roads. It's not just water. It is also roads. It is other physical and network infrastructure. The mere investment in those things alone creates enormous economic opportunities because it unlocks opportunity for other sectors of business. Let me give you, for people who are watching this, just an anecdote. So a friend of mine works for a courier company. They had to buy more vehicles to deliver the same number of parcels because of load shedding and potholes. Because you get stuck in traffic, you get punctures and that sort of thing. You understand. So the business is making less profit out of the same amount of productivity that it has. So what does investing in infrastructure as an example do? What it does, it means that company, let's say that has 10 vehicles, can invest in 5 more vehicles to deliver to 15% more clients. If you want to understand what is hobbling this economy, is things like that. If you solve load shedding, and people no longer get stuck in traffic lights and that sort of thing. Again, you unlock further opportunities. So it's not just a courier company, it's all the related businesses. So that is the one example. The second example is when you set out to actually do better with delivering public services. Every business is in a municipality. Businesses pay rates, individuals pay rates, but we subsidize those rates.
Of course.
Right? Because there are all of these things that are not working. But when you turn around government the way that we do, you unlock that money that is going towards subsidizing. It's a double taxation, basically, for reinvestment into the economy. And I can talk about crime and other things. But there's also the recognition that we've got some of the most powerful sectors in South Africa. You've got the financial services sector, you've got the mining sector, and so on, right? So Gauteng is enormous opportunity. And 5 years is not a long time to create 600 jobs out of a population that exceeds 10 million. I mean, it's not, it's what?
Yeah.
It's not even 60%.
No,
it's like 6%.
There's some who would say it's too small, considering the size of the challenge.
No, look, we also have to be realistic. You know, one of the challenges we encounter on the campaign trail, and even before the campaign proper started through last year, is that people don't believe political parties anymore. So if we said, no, we're going to create 2 million jobs just in Gauteng alone, everybody who's watching this knows it's not going to happen. So you have to come up with a number that when people spend a little bit of effort examining, they're like, yeah, I can see it happening. These guys are credible. So we tend to do that. We tend to under-promise so that we can over-deliver instead of over-promising and then disappointing.
Under-delivering.
Yeah.
You know, it's an interesting time in our elections. And you and I were chatting just before we started recording. Because, you know, you even made an interesting statistical reality of this, how this is an important election, purely because it speaks more to younger people than ever before. People who have no baggage. What does the young vote mean to you as Rise Mzansi and to South African politics currently?
You know, it's not just the young vote. It's what we tell young people across the country. And many of our leaders are actually young themselves. I mean, on our national leadership structure, the youngest person is 21. There are two 20-something-year-olds as well, 3 actually, in that same structure. You know, what I always remind people is that in 1994, we remember Madiba, old, wise, grey hair, and that sort of thing, right?
But you probably voted for him.
I did, right? I voted for the ANC and in 1999 and in 2004 as well. So I've been an ANC voter as well. But what we forget is how many young people were at the forefront of the change at the highest level, right? We had deputy ministers in their 20s and 30s. We had ministers in their 30s. You know, when Tito was Minister of Labour, he was 32.
Young man.
Tito was a young man. I mean, a 32-year-old these days is regarded as, no, you're too young, you must... No. I mean, these people... Togo Didiza was 29, I think.
Yes.
Or 30, when already she was a national leader. Rob Ramaite, the first DG of the public service in the democratic era, I think he was president of SASCO.
Jeez.
Rob was DG at 31.
Wow.
Okay.
So we've been here before.
We've been here before. All we're reminding now young people is that, listen, it's not about voting. This is your chance to lead. Okay? It's your chance to shape the future in which you are going to live. Not the future that somebody who's in their 70s, like our president, is saying, I'm creating a future for you, but I won't be around. When you're doing something for yourself, you do it differently, man.
You know, here's an interesting thing about this, because South Africa has a number of dynamics. One, in terms of the target audience. And I remember in planning this interview, and I said, I wonder who's Rise Mzansi's target audience really? It's easy to say all South Africans. But you have to appeal to a core audience. Like that's what marketing teaches us.
Yes.
And while I was thinking, I said you either choose, Because South Africa is divided, not by our design. It's an apartheid legacy that we carry. It's divided in color, it's divided in regions, divided in areas, divided urban, semi-urban, and rural, and so forth and so forth. Who's your core target audience?
I nearly said it's all South Africans.
It's easy to say that.
It has become a surprising cross-section of South Africans. But let me tell you, who we thought would form the sort of the rump of the people that like what we do. We thought they were typically younger, not older than 45 years old, right? From 25, kind of in the most 25 to 45. You could extend it to 49, but certainly younger than 50, right? So we thought that. We thought it's a majority women, not just because women are the majority in South Africa, but also because the way we framed our politics tends to appeal to women, right? So that's what we thought. And we also thought that it's a cross-section, but mostly poor South Africans. Also because of the way we organize and the issues that we are wanting to surface. What has surprised us, which is why John is upset in the DA, is that we have a surprising number, for instance, of older Africans voters, Afrikaner voters who really, really, really like us.
Do you know why?
I honestly think it's pragmatism, because I think particularly with one of the things I think we somewhat don't think about seriously with Afrikaners is that they don't have the option of a passport, sort of an ancestral passport like English South Africans.
Yes.
Many English South Africans have to go and live in the UK, right? Because you can still trace it to your parents. They have become an African tribe, whether they like it or not. And they are very pragmatic in terms of how they see the future of the country. They generally they understand that you generally will have a black president in South Africa. It's time for younger people to rise, excuse the pun. And the question is whether there are new people that they can trust. And I think that really is it, because we generally reasonable people. I think the Premier of Gauteng was here the other time and he said we are reasonable people. You know what I mean? We are respectful and so on. And I think that appeals to people. So we've got a lot of go-girls right across the color line. But also our young cohort of supporters is very diverse. We have pictures where we're walking in the social movement. There's a couple of white blokes walking with us in social outrage veil and that sort of thing. And that's the joy of what we're doing.
You know, when you look at the very dynamics that you speak of, you end up having to speak to everyone. You're like a national lottery. It doesn't matter who. We all have aspirations and dreams of something better, of a better life. That's why we would all just, what do you scratch or you cross? Yes. That. So the goal is the same for all of us. But ultimately, there's someone that needs you more than others. Do you think there's a section of South Africa that probably needs you? And I'll follow up that question with a very simple reality that asks, what are your own political ambitions as well?
Sure. So I think what we've realized, and we actually set out to do this, we had a meeting last year before we launched Rise Mzansi, where we asked, so who are our people and why? And we decided that our people are poor South Africans who don't have the kind of voice that we have as people who've been endowed with being in Gauteng, having been professionals, having connections in platforms like this and so on to articulate certain things. And yet we are connected to those people because it's where we come from. So, and we thought that we need to use both that background and our ability to articulate the issues to finally say the things that people can only say in service delivery protests when they're angry. And so about 45% of our activists generally are people who are either partly employed or not employed at all, because the politics that we talk about appeal to some of those needs, which again is why the DA is upset with us, right? Because they don't understand why we think the land question is important. Spatial justice is important because they don't understand how a person who lives in a back room needs to use the toilet at 1 a.m. has to go and knock in the main house and hopefully the people wake up so that they can use the toilet. And you want that person out of the backyard so that they can have their own home. And in order to do that, there needs to be land with serviced water and a flush toilet and that sort of thing. So that's what we set out to do. But I think because we articulate it well, we articulate all of these issues. Usually it's women who have to worry about these things. Kids that are sick, how to put food on the table and so on. So they listen to this and they're like, finally, right? And then people who generally have a good solidarity spirit, who don't want anybody else to suffer across income levels, also listen to us and they go, but that makes sense. And that's how this has expanded, David.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your political ambitions. What is your goal? When you wake up in the morning and say, post elections, this is what I hope to achieve.
So, my personal political ambition is more long term.
Yeah.
David. The South Africa we have is a South Africa that was created or fashioned out of 1990 to 1994 and then the 1996 Constitution. There's a lot of interim things. For instance, non-racialism is like, no, let's not hate each other in the back of people's minds. But there's an intellectual project going on here. How do we define non-racialism in the future, right? How do we deepen this democracy so that the people have internalized it? They can participate in it fully and that sort of thing. How do we change our democratic institutions and so on? So for me, the ultimate ambition as an intellectual thing that I am really committed to is to change the face of the country, change the democracy, redefine non-racialism and so on. In that context, I felt you can only do so much without being president, right? At some point, you've got to be bold enough to say, I'm willing to go all the way. But it is not the key driver for me, which is why I'm also so committed to having people like Vuiso and Lawrence and Irfan Mangera and so on at Rise, who are much younger than me, because even when I'm not around, legacy is. The idea continues. And that's how I understand sort of personal ambition.
Yeah.
For me, it's a reshaping of our society and how we understand it. It's not the job itself. In the next election, we are going to be the go-to political party after this election. The go-to political party every time people want to understand what's going on in Parliament. Why doesn't it matter? What should I think about it?
Explain that in practical terms. Say you get a number of seats.
Yes.
What does the go-to political party look like?
So what we are intending to do is to do regular report backs to communities. So we hold street meetings and this kind of thing. So we need to go back. Every time there's constituency, a period, we go back, we go on a roadshow again, and we say, before the election, this is what we said we're going to Parliament to fight for. This is what is being discussed in Parliament. These are the positions that we are thinking around those issues. Tell us what we must go and say in Parliament. And you need to see our people on TV saying there in Parliament what you've told us. You see, that deepens democracy. It restores people's faith in democracy because people aren't going to say, oh, you didn't deliver on what you promised. People are going to say, you always come back here to tell us what's going on. And we hear you and we see you on TV saying the things that we said you must go and say there. That's how you strengthen. And so we're going to be those guys. We're going to break down the big English into simple language.
I've heard that phrase before from some of your videos. We talk about big English politics.
Yeah. We're going to break it down
to
say this is why this law is being proposed. This is what it's going to do. This is how it's going to affect you. What do you think?
Do you think our people are interested?
Yeah.
What are you finding on the ground?
You know, the thing that makes people stick around in meetings is when you explain why things matter. It's not when you tell them to vote for you. They go, oh, really?
Yeah.
Now it switches a light bulb on. And that, by the way, is why they stick around. It's not the promise. it's the empowerment here. And it's when you say, I was in Tembisa the other time. So we in an informal settlement, and the shacks are under ESCOM pylons.
Okay.
So the first thing I say, one of the things I say in this conversation was on a street, that look, people have to move from underneath here because it's very dangerous. Like if anything happens, people get electrocuted, etc., etc., etc. And so we talk about this. And later on, a guy who actually is an EFF guy comes to me and he says, I'm going to split my vote. And I said, why? He said, I'm going to vote for you nationally. I'm going to vote for the EFF provincial, because you didn't BS those people.
Wow.
When you said people are going to have to move, I knew you were genuine.
Yeah.
Because we have to move. We can't live here.
Because he understands
Yes,
the
because he
hazard.
understands,
Yeah.
right? And that I didn't say the easy thing, which is, we'll build your houses here.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, no, you can't build houses here. No, let's move somewhere else. Make sure there's a road and proper infrastructure so you can still access work opportunities, but you can't be here.
Yes.
So we say the things that political parties don't want to say, which is not possible.
Why do you think there's a culture of not making sure that our people know?
You know,
Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that culture doesn't exist.
No. I actually think it's undermining the intelligence of voters. I don't think they set out to make sure people don't know. There might be a few instances when they do, but they just don't think voters care. You know, I get this all the time. I'm sure you have these conversations. Yeah, but people want to know about bread and butter issues. Okay. But you're also taking away their opportunity to determine how you shape those bread and butter issues. So they care about that too.
Yes.
You know, so we tell people about tax. Tell guys, listen, for everybody's a taxpayer in South Africa, even if you don't have a job. Because when you buy anything, most
You
things,
pay VAT.
they take 15% out of every rand. And then I say, who drinks here? Some hands go up. They take even more. It's 40-something cents.
Yeah.
Who smokes here? Some hands are like. You see, all of us are taxpayers.
Yeah.
You must care about what they do with your money. It's your money. It's not government money. It will never be government money. It is your money, every cent of it. And when you are the boss of the politicians, you are the one who pays, who sign the check. So we have those discussions, which for me is real political education. Politicians generally don't think people care.
That's why I asked the question. Do
No,
people
it's a
care?
patronizing attitude. It's
Yeah.
like, how much you tell your kids, like, the kids don't want to know. Then you find out years later that they always knew. And that's why they hate you. Because you were lying the whole time.
Yeah. Because I look at the EFF guy who splits his vote, and I wonder then, where do you plan to get your voters? The voter base is quite clear. We have 30 odd million people who are registered. However, we don't have a great turnout. We're hoping this year we'll have a greater turnout. Where is your voter base right now? Basically, who did they vote for before this?
Let me tell you that. So the majority of them have historically voted ANC. You have people who have been voting for the DA, but because they're angry with the ANC.
Okay.
They're like,
So it's an anti-ANC vote.
anti-ANC vote. They're like, right? We also have EFF voters. I had two fighters. They're coming to one of our meetings, and 30 minutes later, they had signed up.
Wow. They were in red.
No, they weren't, by the way, but they announced. Fighters always announce. That's one thing the EFF people do. They announce, we are fighters. They said. When they left, they were risers.
Now you are risers.
When they left, they were risers.
Yes.
And so it's a cross-section of South Africans. We also finding that they are unlikely voters. I mentioned the Afrikaans vote, which is like stunning. Right?
Is that a Freedom Front Plus voter?
DA also,
Okay.
right? It's Freedom Front Plus, but DA voter. But I once spoke to a Freedom Front Plus guy, and he said, no, their voters will vote for us before they vote for the DA. So I asked him why. He said, no, because these other guys are arrogant. Right? And you guys are like, you're nice. I have to go back to Panyaza again. He said, you guys are nice, you are respectful. And so, people feel that even if they disagree with you, they can have a conversation. And it's not a
fight.
It's not a fight. You stand for what you believe in. So they always know where you stand.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a cross section of people, but we being particularly successful with people who had stopped voting.
Yeah. That audience that affects the turnout.
People who had stopped voting because, people say, David, after meetings sometimes they'll come and talk to me and say, I thought I was never going to vote again. If you disappoint me, if you guys disappoint me, if you guys like this, don't disappoint us, please. We get lots of that every time.
How do you respond to the "don't disappoint us" question?
Hey, it's very emotional for me, I must say, because you realize we take things for granted. As a journalist, you write about issues and so on. You don't think about the emotional impact of politics on people. So whenever people have that conversation with me, it's always deep. I'm like, man, I didn't realize that's how much people get affected by politics. And so people say, I'm going to vote, I'm going to watch you. And if in a month's time, and this was especially last year, you guys are still consistent, I'm going to tell other people to vote for you. But I'm going to wait, watching you. Right? Those people, once they convert,
they're sold. They're Kaiser Chiefs fans.
Yeah, I know. Don't say.
Let's leave that one.
Let's leave that one.
Yes. So they get sold to that extent.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I sometimes don't believe it. I mean, I'm stunned. Sometimes I think, gee, what have we started? Because we get into the weeds of organizing and mobilizing resources and finding people. You don't think about it too much because
you're inside it.
You're inside it.
Yeah.
And then you meet people who just emotionally, they just finish you because you realize that for a lot of people, this is what stands between themselves and hopelessness. And they are fighting so hard. David, we lost one of our volunteers in Orange Farm. So I visited the family. And it was hard for myself and Makashulegana, in fact, our whole team that was there. Because, when somebody dies and they, especially women of the Women's Guild, they hang the jacket, the uniform. In that home, they'd hang a Rise Mzansi T-shirt. So how do you deal with that? You see that and you just think,
you realize the impact.
Yeah, you realize, then you can't disappoint.
I listen to your politics and they sound very similar to Action SA politics in some form. They sound similar to Mmusi Maimani's party, Bosas. And interesting, I was watching an interview of yours this morning with Sakina very recently.
Oh, yesterday.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And they sound similar in a lot of ways. But and you can't help it because South African problems are the same. And you guys breathe the same air.
Yeah.
It's probably in the solutions where there are differences. Yeah. But differentiate yourself from these political parties. It's relatively youthful people who voted previously for the ANC, who find themselves a little angry with certain things, and they feel they need to rise and do something about it. The energy is similar. It's not people who were once members, executive members of the ANC, like your Julias, like Musiwa Lekota and so forth. What is so different about you and Action SA and Bosa in that context?
So firstly, we have said that we are social democrats. And the social democratic path is, it's a center-left position, which obviously Herman is not.
He's capitalist.
He's said he's a capitalist. I mean, we're not capitalist in that way. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we really believe in the concept of people's power. We really, really do. So we're very careful about how much we build the politics around a personality rather than a certain political culture and a way of organizing and a way of understanding the meaning and the importance of politics. So our politics tends to hyper-personalize issues. That's why we talk about family and community and well-being, because if you want to talk about a better life, you've got to be able to define it granularly what it is going to be. So that's another thing. But there's some policy differences. So, for instance, BOSA has a thing that you must give parents vouchers so that they can choose a school, which is usually a private school, in which to educate their children. That's defunding public education.
Yeah.
Man, Social Democrats are about publicly owned facilities. Okay? We are not defunding public education. In any moment, he doesn't put it like that. But when you give a parent a voucher out of the budget, that's the money that was going to go to the school and pay the teacher.
Of course.
Okay. That's a major thing for us. Then you had a conversation, Action SA, they've since resolved it, about the death penalty and so on. It just gives you a sense, right? We set out and we said, we are constitutionalists. We believe in the Bill of Rights. We don't believe in the death penalty. And if your thing is the death penalty, we are not your place. I can but you can go to another political party and so on. We never even debated those things. What tends to happen is that because the issues are the same and the solutions are no-brainers a lot of the time, you can sound.
True.
You can sound
sound
like you
give any kid in university an essay to how to solve the problems of South Africa. They're likely to play around the
come
same
up
space.
With the same thing.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that I have explained some of there are also leadership styles, David. We agree there's an immigration problem in South Africa. The system is broken. You will never see me using a language that incites people against immigrants, whether they are lawful immigrants or illegal immigrants, right? Because I feel we have a responsibility to calm society down, to deal with problems rationally and so on. So your demeanor and how you frame the problem is really important. And also show rational but tough solutions that can show. So there are many subtle differences, but a lot of people are unhappy with the ANC, so we all sound the same.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's why the question always comes up that says, are you an anti-ANC political movement? Are you?
No, absolutely not. And I think that's now become apparent. So one of the reasons that DA is unhappy with us is that they say we are ANC light. We took a conscious decision that South Africans want solutions. They know what's wrong. Merely going there to repeat it
doesn't help.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
People still have the same question. I know they are corrupt. I know they are arrogant. But what's the plan? What's your plan? So we decided, generally, not just the ANC, unless it's necessary to remind people of a couple of things, you're in a debate or whatever, we're just going to focus on solutions.
Yeah.
Which is why the premier was here saying, he testified for us, right? And we never asked him.
No, you didn't. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
It
was true. No, it was true.
It was true. What keeps you up at night? What bothers you the most about this country?
It is seeing so many people. Apart from the poverty and the suffering, it is seeing so many of us increasingly getting used to it. One of the things I've always worried about, and I think I wrote about it in one of my books, David, about the worry I get when I'm driving with my kids and there's a person who's begging on a street corner. So you can't give money to everybody, right? So a lot of the time you don't give them anything. And I worry that my kids will lose feeling for people who are suffering because there's so much of it.
Yeah.
And the things that tend to get into political conversation demonstrate that even some of those people who claim they're speaking on behalf of poor people in themselves aren't. And so I always make this example about the people you see walking next to the road in the morning, especially in summer. They're walking because if they take a taxi, they will not have enough money to put food on the table. And so that person rushes to work. They get there, they're sweating, it's hot, that sort of thing. And then in the afternoon, they've got to do the same thing. And now you encounter that person at the Pick and Pay or the Spa, and they smell. And you think they've got poor hygiene. But they don't have poor hygiene. This is their life.
Yeah.
They have to walk in the morning and walk in the afternoon and sweat with all the dust and that kind of thing. And you coming out of your car have to say, why doesn't this person shower? You know what I mean? It's little things like that we've become so accustomed to that we don't reflect on them and what they mean for real human beings. And I'm hoping that with the way we've hyper-personalized politics now and spoken about family and well-being and so on, over time we can return to that.
Why are you not getting used to them? And I ask this question because it's human nature to find yourself in an unusual environment. And I'll use a dumb example. In the toilet, you get used to the smell. It doesn't matter how bad it is.
Yeah.
You get used to it, you adjust to it, you move on with your life. And that's how South Africans have become. Why is it about you in particular and your party, but you personally, that you feel the pain of it continues and you have to do something about it?
I think it's got to do with my upbringing. You know, when I grew up, for some odd reason, so I was raised by my grandparents. For some odd reason, our home in Mqanduli was always a home where people with mental issues would end up, with mental health issues, varying levels of schizophrenia and whatever else. And one thing my grandmother taught me is that I don't know what kind of schizophrenia it is, but the people who hear voices. So she got to realize that for some of them, the same voices recur. So in order to calm them down, if the person is talking to themselves, you know, we wouldn't say, hey, why are you talking to yourself? So she would ask, who are you talking to now? Oh, you're talking to David. What's he saying now? Hey, but now just ignore him. Come and... So you learn to kind of get into someone else's head and experience, you know, from childhood in that way. Because, I mean, I got beaten up thoroughly by my grandmother because we were teasing a person with mental health issues and she saw us. So I think partly it's just your upbringing where you are taught in order to understand.
You have to empathize.
You have to empathize.
Yeah.
You have to empathize. And so I can't get used to it, but I worry about my kids.
Yeah. And their future.
And their future, and what South Africa then looks like as a country when we are an unfeeling people.
Are we there yet?
Yeah.
Are we smack?
Yeah.
We've arrived at the unfeeling.
You know, David, I must tell you, one of the things I get insulted about on Twitter or X now these days.
It's still Twitter
is
to
the issue, I know, I always just type Twitter. When I'm looking for it. Is the issue of immigration.
Yeah.
Because people use a certain violent language. And so if you don't use that language, then you think South Africans are lame, we must get these people. You know, David, those are human beings.
You're talking about foreign nationals. Yeah.
They're human beings. Among them are criminals. Among them are people just trying to survive. And the only place in which they feel they can survive is here in South
I think
Africa.
mostly it's those who want to survive. Yeah.
That does not mean that we must not apply South African law. But you can at least as a human being say, I'm going to apply the law and I'm going to apply the law properly, but I'm going to do it with empathy. What does that mean? That means if somebody has been in South Africa for 20 years, they've got 2 kids, 18 and say 13. The woman is from Zim, or the man is from Zim, and the woman is from South Africa. Do you, in your heart of hearts, want to chase that whole family away? Or do you want to say, what does a solution look like in this case? Because it's now complicated. These kids are born here, that kind of thing. Right?
What is your approach?
My approach is, which is why people get upset, is that we need to document everyone who's undocumented. And on the basis of each person's circumstances, people need to apply for the right papers. Okay? If you are a person who doesn't qualify to be here for either for a work permit or asylum or refugee status, we are going to have to send you home.
Okay.
Right? And you can apply from there. However, if you qualify for one of those things, you can stay. For some people, it's temporary. It's going to be 5 years. For some people, it's a year, whatever the case might be, right? But treat people with dignity. If you're a criminal, we're going to lock you up.
Of course.
Okay? Like, we have to lock up everybody. So the point I'm making is just apply the law, but please do it with empathy because you're dealing with human beings. Let's not ever use our humanity and say someone who needs ICU treatment, we say you're going to die in the hospital corridor.
But there's a gray area, and using your own example of a guy who's been here for 30 years, 20 years, who has 2 kids and a wife, or rather, whether it's a wife or not, what do you do to that person if they came here illegally?
And that person, by the way, has paid tax.
No, absolutely.
Remember the thing that we are saying. So it's not like they're not freeloading like that.
But what do you do with them, though?
And look, in that case, I think that's a South African family. Right?
Irrespective of whether this guy...
Because the only person who's unlawful here is the husband. So do you break that family now?
You tell me.
No, don't break that family.
Yeah.
We said one of the most important things to rise Mzansi is family. Are we in the business of breaking families now? Come on, let's not do that.
So you would rather just document this man?
Document this person and get them an ID. And because those circumstances say so. Otherwise, you send Unosipho no Karabo, who have never been to Malawi in their lives. You uproot them because their father came here 20 years ago as an undocumented immigrant. Let's look at it this way, David. One of the reasons we're fighting so hard for the land issue is that people who have nowhere to stay have been forced to become illegal occupants of land in their own country. So what are we saying? We are saying regularize those people too. Turn them into landowners.
I hear that. However, it also opens up the possibility of another crime.
Which is?
Where this guy from Malawi will create a fictitious family just so he can be regularized because he'd never had any single paper in the beginning.
No, I get that.
Yes.
No, look, let me tell the story in its complete form. So the first thing we say is important is to secure the borders.
Okay.
Make sure you reduce the illegal immigration thing to this much.
I saw we're dealing with 300,000 people who tried to enter during the Easter holidays.
Yeah. To come back, by the way.
To come back,
by the way, right? So
illegally.
Yes. Tighten, because they were here illegally to begin. Tighten the border. Because this is like trying to scoop water with a sieve. If you don't, you know what I mean? Fix the border. Deal with the corruption at Home Affairs. And. Now you know that, okay, who's inside is inside. Who's outside is outside.
Unless they try to jump.
But basically, now we show. So that we know that if we say to someone, look, you really don't qualify to be here. Okay? So in 7 days or 14 days, we're going to send you home. That person can't come back because you've now fixed the illegal entry point.
Yeah.
Right? Then there are the people that are here in South Africa that you haven't caught. We're saying those people must show up. They can have 6 months or however long. Please have yourself documented and apply for the right papers.
However, if I know I'm illegal, I'm likely to be sent back.
Because you stand a chance of being regularized. Because if you miss that deadline and you don't show up, we are not going to ask questions because you had your chance. We're going to do this humanely, in an organized fashion. You're not now cooperating with a system that is supposed to solve the problem. In that case, now we don't want to hear it. Okay, so those people create a problem for themselves. The people that I think will do well out of the system is people who say, okay, I came in unlawfully in 10 years ago. This is where I now live. Because part of what people complain about is that people commit crimes and you don't even know who they are. So you have to document people. You can't solve a problem you can't identify, right?
Yeah.
Document people so they can also separate the unlawfuls from the lawful.
Got you.
Right. Then determine the circumstances of the people on the books and say, listen, you really qualify for asylum. If you go back home, they'll kill you. You, Baba? No, you and I know. And you don't have a special skill, which is what we need. So my advice is, our decision is go back home. You can reapply from home and see if you know what I mean?
But once that part of the last part of your exercise takes hold, more people are not going to pitch up for this conversation.
But you know what test we would have passed? David would have offered a humane solution. I said you can be tough, but humane. Human beings must always have their dignity. It doesn't matter. We must always protect people's dignity, because if we don't, we get used to a culture of abusing the dignity of certain people. One day we will do it to ourselves.
Yeah. We're here already. We're in your manifesto, if you haven't realized.
Yeah, we are.
Smacking
we are.
it.
Yeah. No. We've dealt with many things.
Exactly. Let's deal with crime.
Yes.
Let's deal with the issue of crime. How does Rise Mzansi try to address the crime issue that you and I know so well? It increases on a daily basis. There's violent crime to domestic crime.
Yes.
How do you deal with it?
So we emphasize prevention. So one of the things we emphasize the use of data is that you can be targeted in how you prevent crime and so on. So let me give one example. In Mapuzi, where I come from, in Mkanduli, it's near Coffee Bay. So I don't come from Mapuzi, but it's another village further on from mine. So there was a meeting in the community that decided that taverns must close at 7 p.m.
Okay, it's a community decision.
The community decided, and the tavern owners were there. So if you want to drink, you can buy your beers and then go drink with your friends. But the reason they did that is because at the tavern, lots of stabbings. On the way from the tavern, the same guys who were drinking together stab each other. So the number of murders fell by 80%.
Okay.
So why is this example important? At Rise Mzansi, we recognize why people engage in violent crime. There's substance abuse. People spend their days drinking because they don't have anything to do. And so we talk about community infrastructure and training opportunities and sporting facilities and arts facilities and so on. So we emphasize prevention a lot and the use of data. I don't have to go in too deep into the rabbit hole. And then target certain urgent crimes.
Yeah.
Right? Especially that are the result of organized crime. Right? So that between these two socioeconomic and prevention initiatives and dealing with organized crime, you can reduce the amount of crime significantly. Right? Where we're going to be tough is on serious offenses. Because you have to be. Otherwise, you don't set the example. The last thing I want to say on this, David, is that we also mindful of the importance of cleaning up the police.
Okay.
Because in places like Mbekweni, the police station there, they tell you there at the police station that no, don't open this case here. Open it at the other police station so that guys, they will delete it.
Okay. Okay.
Right? Go there and then they will transfer it here. Now we can't
because the original papers are there.
And we know people get away with murder practically because of police corruption and poor police working conditions and so on. So we've got a very comprehensive plan for crime.
What happens once the criminals are in jail? Because that's another thing you have to deal with.
So, in fact, it's not even once the criminals are in jail. Do you know how long it takes? I mean, I have relatives who are in prison, right, who have committed crimes themselves. Man, it takes forever.
For what?
For the case to even be heard.
That's another issue.
It's another issue. So our approach is actually, you need to resolve cases speedily. We need to send people to the correctional services one way or the other fairly quickly. And we need to have a real correctional services system where there is a plan for what happens when the person goes out. One of the things we advocate is the expunging of criminal records after a certain time when the person has shown themselves to be rehabilitated. Because what do? We say, oh, you've got a criminal record. 10 years later, you haven't committed a crime, but now you're unemployed. Okay. What are we trying to solve here?
Jeez.
This person has paid their debt to society.
By being in prison.
Being in prison.
Yeah.
They end their parole. They remain on parole. They don't commit another offense. And we continue to punish them.
There's some who argue that our prisons don't rehabilitate.
No, they don't.
They do nothing.
No. They try. I must be fair.
Okay.
They try. It's just that the way we conceive prisons is not for rehabilitation.
Okay.
And
how do you change that?
What I mean by that is that, I went to St. Albans prison in Port Elizabeth, one of the toughest prisons here in Gqeberha these days, in the Nelson Mandela Bay. And the head of prison then, that was with Nicro then, we're doing the project with Nicro, he said the biggest problem in South Africa is long prison sentences for offenses that don't need a long prison sentence.
Okay.
So he says, inmate comes in here for the first time, he still misses his family. The likelihood of rehabilitation then is high because the person doesn't want to be here. Right. But he says by year 7, 8, that person is socialized into the system. If they had a girlfriend, that girlfriend is now married and so on. Like there's nothing for them out there.
Yeah.
Right? And then he says, I see them change. And when we release them on parole after 10 years, I know this one is going to be back within a year.
Whoa.
And they come back.
Because there's nothing out there for them.
Because there was nothing. So he says, imagine if you are in an environment where everything is violent. It's violent here. You have to prove that you've got capability for violence here. And then one day we release you into society. He says, what's going to happen? That guy is not going to say please and thank you.
But then how do you overcome... Because it sounds like you're saying rather reduce the length of the prison sentences.
So let me say there are certain non-violent offenses that also come with long prison sentences, and I don't understand. Listen, if it's a non-violent crime, rather load the weight on community service. Go back and fix that problem that you've caused. In fact, so if you get a 10-year sentence, you're going to serve 5 years. If you're on good behavior, you can be out in 4 years. But for the rest of the 6 years, when you are working there, earning a stipend to pay your dues back to society, you must deal with those people that you made suffer with your offense and do something and rebuild your relationship with society. Why can't we do that?
You tell me. What have you observed?
That's why we need new leaders, David, who think about these things, and we want to be bold. And the last one is we don't want to prosecute drug users.
Okay.
We want to send them to rehab and other diversion programs. Who we will prosecute is drug dealers.
You don't
and drug distributors. So when you are found with drugs, you've got a choice. You can either go to prison or go to rehab. Take your pick. Right? Most people will say, please help me. I want to escape my addiction. And then there's a whole lot of obligations that come with that program, which reintegrates you back into society rather than taking you into a violent prison system where you go in for drug possession, you come out, you commit a murder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
When you and I were growing up in this country of ours, when we were voting in those many elections, drugs were never a problem.
Yeah.
I can say even today in my many years of life that I've never seen cocaine.
Yeah, me neither.
I've seen it on TV.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
I've never seen drugs physically. So that problem has never been a part of our society, particularly a black society. But now you're lucky not to have anyone in your family who has never used drugs or doesn't know, who's never even experienced the experience of drugs at all. What has happened to us? Let me ask that question first. And secondly, how do we reverse it? Because these kids and older people, they find the drug somewhere. Clearly, there's somewhere where it comes in or where it's manufactured. What is the true approach to this problem? We don't know drugs.
Look,
we didn't. Now we do.
On a lighter note, one of the things I've always found amazing is that even in the old days, you'd get your Daka smoking cousin visiting.
Yeah.
And within 2 hours, they know who sells. Yeah. And you're like, how did you find out? But, one of the things that really breaks my heart, it's actually not a moral problem. It's because of our socio-economic conditions that we've got such a big substance abuse problem. Because especially young people, the mental health struggles they have are massive, right? In a lot of the time. And there was a young man in Alex some weeks ago who said, "Hey, bruh, I don't want to wake up in the morning. I don't want to get out because I wake up and I stay into nothing. There's no opportunity, no training, no job, no recreation facilities, nothing. And a day can feel like a week. And a week can feel like a month. Right? And so that's how you fall into
The mess.
like substance abuse and the mess. Like, I don't want to. I don't want you end up using or selling or both. And it's not something that I want to do. But what do I do with my life? Like, I don't know what to do with my life. I've got this mental health structure. We need to recognize that. And usually we moralize it. But I honestly believe that if we were a country of opportunity where we try and keep families intact in every way, whatever the structure of the family, even if it's a single parent, right? A parent has got to be able to go to work in a reasonable time and come back home in a reasonable time. Because then you can see that, hey, something's changed with this child. What's going on, right? But what time do parents leave home? 5:30. What time do they come back? 6, 7 p.m. Something goes wrong with your kids and you don't even know it.
Because you don't spend majority of the time with them.
And the spatial environment that we have says it's okay. At Rise Mzansi, we say that's not okay. That's not okay. People have got to take fewer modes of transport, fewer taxis. They must get into public transport, get to work, come back on time. See your kids eating supper. And talk to them. How was school? Even if you're a poor person, your kids need care.
Yeah.
And so the kids that, suffer the most tend to be in areas that are most neglected by our society. And I think there are ways around this, David, that we can do government policy and budgeting differently to start dealing with these issues rather than just arresting people.
Or, because we arrest. And we
that's
gather,
all.
we bust them.
Social problem,
Yeah.
arrest them, right? But as young people say to us, David, in East London, I had 2 guys who said, we are siyachaya ketina bra.
What does that mean?
We smoke.
Oh,
We smoke.
we say chai. Yeah.
We smoke. I said, okay, tobacco. The guy says, no,
That's heavy.
The real stuff. And I spent about 20 minutes with these guys, 30 minutes actually. They were taking me through their addiction struggles.
Yo.
And how they're trying to rehabilitate their relationship with the community and how they don't get believed because they keep relapsing. And the one day they chased a car that had hit and run over somebody and didn't stop. So they stopped this car and people thought they were trying to rob it.
Ooh.
It took
Because they are already misunderstood.
right. So these are real human beings. That's why I keep coming back to dignity. You listen to someone like that, you want to help them. You want to work with them because they're being vulnerable.
What do you say to a politician that believes we need a much tougher stance with everything? The dignity approach is long past. We're at a stage where if you're foreign national, we bus you, we ship you out, irrespective. If you're a drug abuser, drug seller, we arrest you and put you in jail for 100 years. What do you say to that approach to solving core issues? If you're a corrupt politician, we throw you, we put you at Robben Island and detain you where you come from.
Yeah, no. I mean, if you corrupt, you can still, because corruption is not a victimless crime. By the way, that's a very serious offense to us because it's a form of violence against society. But your overall question, these things never solve the problem the way people think it is. Countries with the death penalty are still hanging people to this day.
Because no one stopped.
Because if the death penalty worked, there would be no murders.
I guess.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Human beings adapt. They live with the rules that they have. If I want to kill you, I'm still going to kill you. Right? All that will happen in a corrupt society like South Africa is this. If today a murder docket costs 15,000, When we have the death penalty, all that will happen is that the price will become 65,000 and people will still commit murder.
Nothing will change.
Of course. The problem is people don't get arrested and charged on time and sentenced on time, and the sentence is applied. It's not that, the sentences are not harsh. 25 years in prison is long.
Let's talk about land.
Yes.
You're one of the few politicians who speaks about special planning, so you know.
Yes.
I observe all this and I try to consume as much of it. And you speak about a problem that we've had in this country for a long, long time. Give me your position as Rise Mzansi when it comes to the land issue. The history of land you and I know very well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We may not necessarily see it the same way. However, we know it.
Yeah.
That somebody owned land and one random morning they were told to move. What is your approach?
And people tend to think that it was just land. I mean, they think that black people lost as much as land was cattle. I mean, it was actual looting, not just of land. But, we're not very historically accurate people, so we forget these things. But here's the thing. There is a historical land injustice. In my family, I know all about it. Right. Half the town of Mqanduli, where there's a magistrate's court and everything, used to belong to the Bashe family who are related to us. They're not going to get that land back. They were chased away in the 1800s. In fact, in front of the post office, there is a tree there. Under that tree, there's a grave, Nabileyo's grave, the patriarch of the Bashe family. Right. So when people sometimes people sit under that tree. They don't know.
That underground.
Yeah, they don't know. So land is, and I've said this, land is spiritual for us black people. Where I come from, we bury our dead on the property. There isn't a communal graveyard where I come from. We bury them on the property. The possibility that you could be without a place that you call yours spiritually is traumatizing for a lot of people. Because it means you can't even tell your ancestors that I'm now here. Because you are renting, you are in an informal settlement and it's cramped and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So the thing is, land is spiritual. It's a very deep thing. So we need to make sure that every South African who needs a piece of land on which to live has it within reason. That's going to need us sometimes to expropriate land for that purpose.
Okay.
But also people need a decent life, right? We need to plan new communities, townships and new villages and so on. Some people want to do spatial planning, a sort of stock farming with a small holding vegetables and that kind of thing to feed themselves and so on. And the population has exploded now. We don't have the same number of people that we had in 1913.
Of course.
Right?
It's way more.
Exploded. So restitution alone is not enough. We now need to also do land distribution because there's just more people. And the population is urbanizing. And we are not catching up with the rate of urbanization. So we need already to change how we think about infrastructure and availability of land, for what purpose and that sort of thing. And so our position on land is informed by where we think South Africa is going, what South Africa's current and future needs are, and that when you do land policy, it must work for 60, 70 years. Right? We can't be surprised when the informal settlement, South Africa is urbanizing. Why are these politicians surprised? I don't understand. And then we can do things like, David, even if they haven't built your RDP house, that stand is yours. It's got your name on it.
Yeah.
And now you can start making a plan to build yourself a dwelling there. And you can now start becoming a family. Some people need a little bit of help with building because they work, but it's not enough. And some other people can't do it themselves. They're disabled, they don't work, whatever the case is. Let's have a hybrid of solutions. But the availability of land is really a human imperative. It's not about hating white people. And the politicians who make it about that are the kind of leaders we don't need.
Who make it about a race thing.
It's not a race thing.
Are you sure it's not a race thing?
No, it's not a race thing. If you accept that we are now a democratic society where if there is a problem, it's a problem for all of us. I want,
but others will say, I didn't cause the problem.
I want a white person or anyone to tell me that no, I would rather have that person not have their own home and they have to keep knocking at the front house to use the toilet at 1 a.m. when it's raining. What kind of human are you? My family's land is now 40% of what it was in the 50s because it was expropriated. There's like 6-7 families that live on some of our land there. Do we walk around our village crying? We don't.
How do you address the restitution issues, though? The issues of, they took my land and I want it back.
No, we have to address that. But in some instances, you can't. It's like the family that I was telling you about. You are not going to demolish the magistrate's court and the police station. I mean, you're not.
Well, I want my land back.
Well, we can allocate you a piece of land.
It's not my problem how...
We can allocate you a piece of land elsewhere, but we're not going to demolish the town. You know what I mean? There are realities like that where you can't. The Gaulas, who are our neighbors, had a big piece of land where it's pastoral land now. It was expropriated from them. It's not just white people from whom expropriation will happen.
There's always a phrase, without compensation.
No, that's silly.
What happens with that?
That's silly. I'll tell you why. And I'm only going to use one swear word on this, so don't worry, it's not too rough. So, you see, when you make a law like that, it's a law of general application. The state can take your land and not pay you, whether you're black or white.
Okay.
There is nothing like a law for white people. No, there's nothing like that.
So what should be happening?
No, I'm just establishing that principle.
Okay. So
now I'm having a conversation with one of the elders in our village. I mean, he's not that old. He's in his late 50s. So he asks me about this thing. He says, so that means they can come and take umhlaba sekai, bangan patal. I said, yeah, technically, yes. He said, banganya.
Yo.
Umhlaba sekai lo. Here's the thing about making laws like this.
Yeah.
You know, you can bleep it later when you do the edit.
We'll see.
Yeah. So here's the thing about making a law like that. You're giving government officials the right to take anybody's land and not pay them in the hope that they will only do it to white people. But now let's say you do it to Swanepoel. Swanepoel says, no, actually, I'm from Rustenburg. I only came here 2 years ago and I bought this land in Port St. John's. Okay.
Yeah.
What must happen now?
You tell me. What is your solution?
You can't not pay Swanepoel for that land.
Yes.
The only thing that expropriation says
without
is that
compensation.
Expropriation as a principle in our constitution. You can't say because we want to build a township on that land that is worth 2 million, or ask us for 10 million. No, you're not going to get 10 million for this land. It's worth 1.8 million.
So you're saying we pay for market value?
No, it's not market value, by the way. The Constitution, it has got other caveats in it. If, for instance, on that land, you've received, that owner had received government subsidies, and we subtract.
Okay.
That's why Judge Dikgang Moseneke was a deputy president of the PAC, the party of land in this country, said the tragedy of his time at the Constitutional Court is that neither the government or anyone ever brought an expropriation case to the court to decide. The Constitution says you can expropriate. Advocate Tembeka Ngcukai Tobi has written a whole book to say it can be done. But there's a certain populism that wants to say, because the message in it is that, no, let's also take something from white people. They don't care about the spatial planning and all of these things I was talking about. They don't care. They don't care about people's dignity and what you're going to do with the land. It was a different message. It was, we can also exact revenge on white people. So the reason I'm saying it's not a black-white issue. Let's do a land expropriation, but not as revenge, to address the indignities in which people live.
We're dealing with a country that has mushrooming informal settlements.
Yeah.
You become a leader, whether of the country or the province in Gauteng. It mushrooms everywhere, but Gauteng you see it more often than not. How do you deal with that?
By doing what you and I have just discussed, David. The only reason the informal settlements that we pretended that those people are not coming. They are.
So you're saying we didn't plan ahead?
No, that's the problem. Why is it an informal settlement? How can we be surprised that people are coming to Gauteng? Is it a surprise?
I don't think.
Are you surprised? Are you surprised?
I don't think we're surprised.
So why is
I'm
there
not
no land?
surprised. And I think in the conversation I had with the MEC, rather with the Premier, he said, let them come. We want them here.
As unlawful settlers on land.
Yeah, and you give me your take on it.
No,
we already have the
This
problem.
is why we are saying secure the land already, because we know the people are both here, and next year there'll probably be 500,000 more. Why wait? Am I not making sense?
No, you are. You are.
So that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
So they say, there are certain areas where there might be small holdings, whatever the case is, their population is expanding. Go to those landowners and say, listen, here's a problem.
They're coming.
They are coming. They are going to settle here, whether you like it or not.
They might do it by force.
They might do it by force. You might just find them here one day. So let's plan in advance. We think you need to move. Right? So that we can put water pipes and these kind of things, and say there's sanitation here, so that when they come, it's a lot more orderly. That's all.
Okay. Got you. It makes complete sense. Education.
Yeah.
How does Rise Mzansi address? There's a problem with education.
Yeah, it's just that there are people who also lie about the nature of the problem and say, it's only because it's 30%. Come on, man. I mean, that's not the issue.
What is the issue?
So there are multiple issues, and I won't say too many. But one of the problems is poverty and hunger.
Okay.
So part of the reason kids struggle in school, and that's 27% in my province of the Eastern Cape, where I come from. I mean, two provinces, Gauteng and the Eastern Cape, is that the families are so poor that the kids, just from malnutrition and related problems, just don't do well in school. That's not a 30% problem. And that is why in our manifesto we also talk about food a lot and how to feed families in the short and the long term and that sort of thing. So that's the first thing. The second problem is the governance of schools. It's poor. Let's be honest here. We also have unions that are problematic, that don't make, in fact, SATU as a union specifically, that causes other problems with managing schools effectively. So we need to solve that problem. The third problem is the quality of the teachers that we have. Not good enough. Part of the reason kids can't read for meaning is that the teachers themselves aren't so good. Right? So we've got lots of systemic problems. And the last one is just physical network infrastructure, access to internet, and. All of these things that would satisfy a child's curiosity. My kids come home, they can access the internet on their phone or share a laptop and do an assignment. And that possibility is not there. And that inequality begins quite early. So that's why we emphasize the local and regional network infrastructure. It's a big thing in our manifesto. It's to service multiple needs, including education. But I think if we did those things, the quality of education would improve, and start with some immediate interventions at a teacher level.
Well, how do you address unequal education? Because the nature of education was divided many, many years ago, and that continues, where you have kids that are going to end up looking for the same job, but the quality of the education is so different, and it starts like that, and it's going to end up the same. How do you address that?
So the reason we keep saying we need new leaders is that at Rise Mzansi we have an integrated approach to these things. You see, you can't just resource a school in an area with no water, with no internet connectivity, with none of these things. And road access is poor, etc., etc. So the way we conceive education infrastructure and health infrastructure is linked to general community infrastructure, and why we believe we should start with that as an emergency. Because what that means is that child whose parents now pay, let's say, 100 Rand for unlimited access to at least 4G in their community, the information they've got access to is enormous. If you put a solar panels on every roof in South Africa, just the access to electricity without additional cost burden on the family changes, right? And just these two interventions can have an enormous impact on education outcomes, plus food.
Yeah.
So we believe that some of the education infrastructure is intricately linked to how you understand and conceive and build communities. What our current lot of leaders do is they see a school as an island, a clinic as an island, and you try and resource just the school. But there are drug dealers and the like outside.
In the neighborhood.
The neighborhood is falling apart and there are no lights and so on. Come on.
Different subject, time pressure.
Yes.
Party funding.
Yes.
Political funding has become an issue.
Yes.
For everyone. It's something that for a long, long time political parties agreed on, that you say nothing about it. And then suddenly
There was a law.
there was a law
Yes.
that said you cannot say anything about it.
Yes.
And your name as Rise Mzansi came out quite prominently. I don't know whether you were too honest
Yeah, we were too honest.
or what actually happened to you in that regard. Because you became a party with the biggest funding and so forth. So describe that. Was it a matter of other political parties are not telling the truth, or what is the story? How do you understand?
They not. I mean, we actually the reason we became such a topic of discussion is because we published the information ourselves ahead of the IEC doing so. Because people were asking, it was a mystery, right? So we decided to publish the information.
What led to that decision? You didn't have to.
We wanted to focus on our campaign.
Okay. And get this, but it drew attention.
We knew, and it was fine. I
Yeah.
mean, we knew the attention would come, right? So party funding is really difficult, right? And I'm the chief fundraiser at Rise Mzansi.
Okay.
And it's difficult because South Africans generally think that you have to pay millions to support a political party. But then the opposite is true. I mean, we're lucky to have a couple of hundred donors. Most of them are small donors. But generally, people just don't fund political parties. So I have been on a fundraising tour for over a year. Vuiswa, similarly, she does a lot of that. And we are intermittently joined by some of our colleagues. What really got people upset, or at least excited, I'm not saying upset, excited, is that Rebecca Oppenheimer was one of our donors, right, at the time. And somehow people believe that we don't have the right values. And we're not standing for the things you and I have been discussing.
Well, let me tell you what as you put it, somehow people believe that you stand for them until you have votes. And once you have votes, you now stand with your funders.
Well, it's something that people are just going to have to wait. Because what would you rather have? A political party that tells you who their donors are, or a political party that doesn't tell you?
I'd rather have one that tells me. But then I get concerned with how much.
Let's call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
The EFF, I think if they've declared 2 million in the last year, it's a lot.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you saying they don't have the money? They don't get the funding?
No, they do. They just don't declare it.
Okay. Compared to your declaration.
You know what I mean? It's like you are able to hold an event at FNB with 100,000 people with a 270,000 rand donation.
Hey, some people are good at using their money.
Be serious.
Maybe let lift was free.
And you know the posters they and the ANC and MK have. You have seen the long ones.
Yeah, they're the one that are way
weatherproof.
Yes. I think the ANC
1,500 rand each.
Gee, somebody's going to start counting them.
They complaining about our cardboard.
But your Corex is 75 rands each. I had someone like that.
You see, the hypocrisy unfortunately exposes itself quickly because we've decided to declare our donors so that people can test whether we change what we say we stand for. That's the opportunity South Africans have. Can you test whether what some other political parties stand for has got anything to do with their donors? You can't, because you don't know them.
Let's use clearer language. Do you think other political parties are not telling the truth about their donations?
They're not.
Yeah.
One of the things this Party Funding Act has done is to drive fundraising underground.
Explain.
By that, I mean you're going to have, and I met two people, I met two, and I think I can name them. Richard Calland, who is a professor at UCT, and Lawson Naidu from Kasak, when I was still in a job, right? And they were trying to get companies to just get into the culture of just donating to political parties, right? So that political parties don't have to try all of these things, because people don't want to be known that they are donating to certain political parties, right? And Julius has spoken about this. If the ANC finds out that a person has donated to an opposition party, that company, that entrepreneur is dead economically, because they're going to squeeze them. So what happens is people just don't want to donate, or if they donate, they want to donate secretly, which is our problem.
Yeah.
Which is people give us 95,000 rand when they can afford to give us 1 million.
Because 95 doesn't have to be declared. Yeah.
So we don't have enough resources as it is, because people who could have given us an extra 10 million now have given us 100,000.
What is an ideal scenario for you?
In an ideal scenario, I think things will change when the ANC loses a majority, and people will feel more comfortable that they were not going to be victimized, and they will give a lot more freely. So the law should stay. The law should stay. Things are going to change. It's just that it's difficult being a party like ours, because some companies, for instance, say, no, we only give to parties already in parliament. Okay, we're not in parliament.
We only give those that have seats. Why do people donate to political parties?
No, it's because some people think you need to give a lot. And we are teaching people through Rise Mzansi that you can give us. So we give people price lists.
Okay, yes.
And we say 100 posters is X amount. And they go, oh, I didn't know that.
I can give you that.
I can give you that.
Okay.
There was another gentleman in Port Elizabeth. He gave us 20,000 rand. He said, okay, I'll give you guys 400 T-shirts.
Because they can see it.
Yeah, you can see the price list. So we get people doing that now. So we're raising funds now for trucks for gig rigs for the last month of the election. And we're telling people how much they cost, and so on, how much each day costs, so that people can say, okay, I'll donate 2 days, I'll donate 1 day, maybe not 5 friends. So people are beginning to get into the culture.
But what is the reason for the donations? Because they can use the money elsewhere.
So a lot of time people say to me and to my colleagues is that, look, I want the change you guys are fighting for. I can't do it myself, but I'll help in whatever way I can.
Okay.
Right.
And with the big funding, the Oppenheimer funding, there are those who say, those who give you money in politics control what you do.
No, they don't. By the way, money is relative.
Of course.
Right.
15 million is nothing to someone. Yes.
You understand? Like, people will think, it's a lot of, like, come on, give me a break. Like, honestly.
It's a lot to me. It's a lot to the average South African.
No, I know.
Yes.
All I'm trying to say is people have also got to understand what potentially can swing a vote, right? Can swing a company. There are political parties that do very questionable things, who don't declare their donations. I don't want to sit here and slag other political parties who don't declare their donations, but they stand for very dodgy things. And you're like, I wonder if it's got to do with their donors. The thing about how we work is that we give potential donors a choice. We have a document called Our Politics. It's on our website. It says what we stand for. It has a section called Ideological Declaration.
Okay.
We have a manifesto. If you like what we stand for, you can support us. If you don't,
those who give you money controls what you do.
no, they don't. Not us.
Not you.
No, not us. Not us. That's why we declare them, by the way, so that people can one day say, we know so-and-so gave you money, and you've now changed your tune. That's the reason for the declaration. It's not to say they control us now. I mean, people are fearing a possibility that has not happened in the future. Let me put it to you this way. If they didn't give us money,
you wouldn't have that.
You know what I mean? We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have these banners. It's because people give us 1,000 rand, 5,000 rand, 10,000, 15,000, etc., 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 so that we can do what we do. Because they are also voters.
What do you say to those that donate to just about everyone in politics?
I encourage that, by the way.
Okay.
I encourage that because democracy costs money. It's like a church. If people don't tithe, there's no church.
Yeah.
We gotta get into the habit of funding things we believe in. Things don't fall from the sky. My colleagues and I have used our own savings to get this started. And then people say you're in it for money. Politicians earn very little, man.
Yeah. You know why they say that, though?
No, I know. Because of the corruption.
Absolutely.
Yes, because of the corruption. But politicians...
You can't say Tsogudla. There's been statements like that in the past. You know why they say that?
No, I appreciate it, and we don't get upset with them. I only get upset with the political parties that lie, by the way. I don't get upset with citizens who are asking questions.
Yeah.
It's the other political parties who are being hypocritical.
What are the expectations from the Oppenheimer family from you?
No, it's not the family, by the way.
It's
the
Rebecca.
Other members
It's
of
an
the family
individual.
support the DA.
Yes.
Yeah. No. We had several conversations about what we stand for, how we do our politics, about non-racialism, about social democracy and all of these things, and that we in it for the long term. We wanted what I shared with you about changing the face of South Africa, how we understand our problems and so on. And she said, I like that story. Yeah. Same as the other donors. I mean, $1 million is a lot of money. People think about it. We declared 17 million, by the way. Yes. 17 million and a bit.
There was a 2 and a 15. Yes. Yeah.
People don't care, but $1 million is a lot of money. People don't even ask.
I'll tell you why. Because the 15 comes from one person.
No, and that person can afford it.
Yeah.
What we don't have enough people who can afford 15 million giving us 15 million. In fact, the ideal situation is that a diverse group of people who have nothing to do with one another, with different interests, give us 15 million each. Then people can see that you can't serve all of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's where we need to get to with party political funding, because it's self-paralyzing. I won't give a political party money, but I also don't want someone else to give it to them.
So rather, there's nothing.
Then have no change. Let's just complain and tweet. No,
That's a quote. Let's just complain and tweet.
I don't worry about this question. It's valid, but it doesn't deter us.
Yeah, issues. There's priority issues. Let me look at them. Leadership and governance issues.
Yeah.
You rated that as high on your priority issues.
Yes. Short version is this. You know, throughout our discussion here, David, we've been talking about how to think about problems. How to approach problems, how your understanding of the issues is, and how you can do things differently. That's a fundamental reason we need new leaders. You need fresh ideas. You need people who've now observed for a long time, looked at their own experience and say, this is not okay, this is not okay, this is not okay. I also want to get involved in doing things differently. That's the first reason. The second reason is, if we didn't have the politicians now were so abusive to professionals in the public service delivery would improve. And we intend to be the political leaders who value the contribution of professionals and nurture them and support them to do the work of the South African people and serve them properly. Wouldn't it be great for someone to move from the private sector to the public sector, because the work environment is nice, and I can see the difference in people's lives, and you can drive down a road and say, we did this road. We planned it and we did it in a year. Right? That's pride. It's like, as a professional, I can tell my kids,
I did this.
We did this. Yeah. I was there when we want people to have that level of pride in doing things for the public.
Yeah.
And we must pay them well, David. I'm not one of these people who say government officials are being paid too much. If you have a budget of 230 billion and you want to pay that person a middle manager's salary, you are going to get middle manager outcomes. Let's get proper professionals. Let us pay them properly.
Yeah.
Let us hold them accountable. Let's support them. And let's please leave them to do the job of the South African people. Politicians must do policy and oversight.
What do they do now?
Interference. They want to do the work of the DG. Which is sad.
But DGs sometimes are deployed.
That's the other problem. One of the things that we clear about is cadre deployment will end in the minister's office, not in the department. It must end. Your advisors, please, by all means, deploy. Yeah, you can deploy them. That's what our constitution allows. But from municipal manager, and in fact, every municipality must interview the candidates, a final shortlist in public. Citizens must go there, at least representatives, and watch. Like we watch Public Protector and so on.
Yes.
Yes.
Do we have a leadership crisis in South Africa?
We do, private and public sector.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I worked for companies for 24 years. I have seen the quality of leadership deteriorate. And I fear that we're beginning to lose some of the really good private sector leaders because they're just moving on in years. People with a national sense of national spirit who are not comfortable with just the role that companies play for profit. You know, David, quickly, the former MD of Volkswagen, Dave Powells, taught me such a powerful lesson when we were discussing employee turnover and that some people leave, we train them and they leave. And he said, no. A company the size of ours must train more than enough people for ourselves and for the South African economy. And if we train people here and they leave and they go and do great things in the economy, I'm happy.
Everyone wins. Let's talk about the ultimate leader. Is there a problem there with the South African president?
Yeah, there is.
What is your problem with him?
Too many, but I'll mention two. The first is that he's too concerned with being liked.
Well,
PR is a big part of his life. Right?
PR is a big part of politics.
As a result, he overpromises and underdelivers. So that's the one thing.
Well, then he gets the negative results of his ambition.
Yeah, Jacob Zuma has come back to haunt him. He's a monster of his own making. The second thing with our president is that he prioritizes the ANC and its corruption over the rest of us. You can't keep the wolves inside and hope to raise chickens at the same time. That's what he's been trying to do, and that's why we know it. The solution is that the rest of them, actually, he and his wolves need to retire now. They must go. The ANC must go and fix itself outside of government and then go back and make a case to the South African people and try and win an election again.
So you're saying wrong guy or wrong party?
Wrong party. He's a wrong guy in the wrong party.
Yeah.
He's a wrong
guy. He was the guy we all thought Uzo Tumamina. The whole energy of even the DA said we supported the president.
Also,
did you vote for him?
No. I knew better. I mean, the ANC has been problematic for a long time. I last voted for the ANC in 2004.
Okay.
That was my last election vote.
So he never got your vote?
No.
Where did your vote go?
I voted to different small parties. Bantu Olomisa is my uncle. I've given my vote to the UDM on numerous occasions.
Yeah.
And I've also voted for a DA councillor where I live.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what you're saying, the only solution to the country right now is what for with the ANC? Because the ANC will still get a lot of votes.
No, they'll still be the biggest political party. But we really need new leaders, David. We need a fresh start. It's been 30 years. And you become jaded doing the same thing for too long.
But the 30 years wasn't all bad.
No.
The narrative always groups it as one long bad era.
No, listen, it wasn't. In fact, when I speak generally, I speak about the last 15 years.
Yes.
Yeah, generally.
Not the 30 years.
But remember, I'm saying, after 30 years doing the same thing, you become jaded. That's the point I'm making about the 30 years.
Yeah.
That you become jaded. Those things I was telling you about, the person who's walking down the road, you stop seeing them. You are used to it.
Yeah. They don't bother you anymore.
You've done door-to-door. People told you they are hungry. Over the years, it doesn't affect you anymore. You know what I mean? So that the reason the democratic system is built on regime change voluntary regime change. It's so that new people will still have a feeling for this. And these ones who need to go and detox can go and detox.
Not in government.
Not in government. They must detox there and then come back.
Let's talk about the future performance quickly
Yes.
of Rise Mzansi. What are your hopes with the next election?
We're hoping to be in the top 5.
Okay, that's an average of 10 seats?
20 or more.
20 or more. Okay, all right. That's about
20 seats, no,
almost
not percent.
No, I got you. I speak
no, I'm saying
seats.
for the viewers.
I speak seats. I don't speak percentages because people get lost in the percentages. That's about more than 1 million votes.
It's achievable.
Yeah,
It's achievable.
it's achievable.
Yeah, it's achievable.
What
It would be incredible. It would be incredible, but it's achievable
what makes you think you're likely to get to it?
because of the support that we've got. We literally, like, people who say they're going to vote for us, we sign them up, we know their names. And
You're not going to know what I voted for, even if I signed.
No, I'm saying,
Yes.
no, we don't sign you up if you're not sure.
No, I can tell you, I'll probably said the same thing to Julius a week ago.
No, this is, I'm not going to ask you, but
No, I'm just giving you an example.
no,
of,
people. No, we don't just ask people. We recruit them. So these people would otherwise be members.
Okay.
This is a proper conversation. This is not a who are you going to vote for? Like, no, this is like a proper thing. Then those people get involved in our activities. This is why we had so many people there at our manifesto launch in Pretoria.
It was a full house.
Each one of those 4,000 people was our people.
Yeah.
There were no randoms there.
So you can quantify, in some sense, the number of people that are likely to vote for you.
We are now working on making sure they turn up to vote. Yeah.
How are you going to do that?
We have a call center. We talk to them.
Yeah.
Our volunteers are in touch with them. We also talk to them on the phone, WhatsApp, SMS. They come to our events. We keep them busy.
So 20 seats,
Yeah, it's achievable.
5th biggest political party.
It's achievable.
Coalition politics. Who are you likely to work with? You and John's
We're not gonna
relationship
work,
is.
we're not going to work with the thieves.
Who are the thieves?
The ANC.
Okay.
We're also not going to work with the guys who say toss out the constitution like MK.
Okay.
Remember, we said we're constitutionalists.
Yes.
The rest we can talk to,
Your relationship
but
with the
there
DA?
are conditions. No, by the way, we really okay with the DA. They just threatened by us, which is not our problem.
So you are fine.
Oh, we're fine. I mean, I was at a debate yesterday at one of the TV channels, and we had a lovely chat with the DA guy.
Okay.
It's not personal for us. We're doing what the South African people said we want to do, we need to do. After the election, if we happen to end up in a coalition, we don't have to, by the way, because the work of oversight in Parliament is also really important. We can't, this thing, you can't all be chiefs. No, if you have to be Indians.
That's it.
So we see our role going beyond being in government. Parliament is important. The quality of MPs needs to improve. People need to watch Parliament and be proud.
Yeah.
And we want our people to be the MPs that everybody wants to watch.
Are you likely to work with the EFF?
It depends on what the issue is. Because remember, there are different legislative agendas. If the EFF or any political party has an idea, for instance, to improve government transparency and so on, and they table a bill, we'll work with them.
Yeah.
This business of saying we hate that political party, we'll never work with them, is wrong. Even in the case of the ANC, if there is a law that has been workshopped in Parliament, and we're all happy now that it does its job. Why not vote? We can't just oppose for the sake of oppose.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying the DA thing doesn't worry us. Once the election is over, the fight is over.
Now that we know what the size of the cake.
Yeah, we know the size
How
of the
it- how
cake
it
is
looks
eat
like.
your piece, all eat our piece.
Yeah.
And let's work together for the South African people.
I've run out of time. I want you to speak to your politician, to your constituency, to speak to that camera and tell your people to vote for you or not vote for you.
No, I just want to say this is the most important election since 1994. Every problem that we have, that we complain about, is an outcome of the political leadership that we have. In most cases, the only way in a democracy you change that political leadership is by voting. It's really important for all of us, for all our sakes, and for the sake of our kids and future generations, that we make the inconvenience of considering which political party to vote for. In this case, vote for Rise Mzansi. But please, even if you don't, encourage everyone who is registered that you know to turn up on the 29th of May to vote, because this is about our future and our children's future.
Do you recognize the excitement about Rise Mzansi? Do you see it?
I see it, yeah. It freaks me out sometimes.
Is it unexpected?
Yeah, because, we are new.
Quite. You're a year old, almost to the day.
Yeah,
yes.
We are a year old. We are new, and we really wanted to make an impact. We are genuine in what we're doing. And so when people show enthusiasm, I'm both happy and freaked out, because it's a bigger sense of responsibility. You can't excite people for nothing.
Yeah.
You have to show up.
You have to deliver.
You have to deliver.
If you're going to dance, you must really dance.
Yeah.
Do you feel, because some say you're more an urban political party than you are any other. Are you an urban political party?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
By the way, the reason they all ignored us, the other political parties, is because they thought we were an urban political party. Now they're complaining. Even in Guyana, they're there.
They see your poster.
Yeah, they're in Guyana. Man, I end up in places where I think, where did these people hear about us? There's a place called Bochum in Limpopo. Ghana and I ended up there the other day. And then we went to Nkomazi, near Mozambique. And it was full there. And I'm thinking, hey.
So this excitement is not just a Joburg and Pretoria excitement.
No, not at all.
You are.
And you go to places like that and you think, hey, man, where did these people hear about Rise now? They're all here. The mamas and the young people.
You know, I want to give you an opportunity to really acknowledge those that work behind the scenes. Because even in this very room, it's not just the two of us. You didn't come alone, unlike other political parties.
Thank you for doing that. Yes. Because we are an organization built on the work of volunteers. Our organizing style is to knock on doors and talk to people.
Yeah.
We hardly do big meetings because you can't persuade people of what you stand for. I'm telling you now, as I'm speaking to you now, there are over 3,000 people knocking on a door somewhere in South Africa, or in a taxi rank, having a small gathering of 5-7 people, telling them about Rise and what we need to do. These guys, the majority of them, don't get paid. They're doing it because they believe in it. And those are the guys I wake up every day and I'm like, hey, when it's raining and you don't want to be like out there, those guys are out there. So our organizers and our volunteers, are just the lifeblood of this movement. Then there are the people, our small donors. I know we've just spent time talking about one donor, but the most valuable people are the people who buy us 100, 200, 300 posters, 50 T-shirts, flyers, and that kind of thing. That's people with not a lot of money. And they give what the
little they have.
People cook out of their own food for our meetings in their home. Wow. Those are Mzansi donors.
Do you feel this is a turning point of sorts?
Yeah, it is. It is. I just sometimes I can't believe it. You walk into a home, it's packed. In Kimberley, I know I'm talking too much. In Kimberley, and we've got the pictures. There's a lady we visited last year, and she didn't even let us into her home.
Okay.
Because she just didn't think she thought we were the usual charlatans. The biggest meeting we had in Kimberley a few weeks ago was at her house.
Wow. Now she said you can come in.
It's the headquarters. You know why? Because our volunteers took time from doing party work and went to the municipality to solve some of the issues that she had. They went with her. They caused a bit of a stink there and things were sorted. And she was like,
maybe these ones.
And we said to her, this is our politics. It's not about those things up there. It's about the day-to-day struggles.
Your position is tricky. Starting something is hard.
Yeah.
Whether it's a small business or it's a family.
Yeah.
And you're starting a political party. Aren't you sometimes overwhelmed by the size and the scale of this undertaking?
Sometimes, yes, but remember, there's a national leadership collective. I must tell you, these guys, there's Vuiswaye, there's Makashule, there's Lawrence, there's Nick. I'm not alone. And that helps so much. I don't have to worry about everything, honestly.
Yeah.
Because there are guys who are always doing something. Like these guys here, they're sorting out some problem.
Yeah.
Beans does communications, he's also deputy campaign manager. People multitask.
Wow.
So you feel like I'm not alone. I'm always covered.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always covered, all of us.
So guys, I wish you well.
Thank you, sir.
It's going to be an interesting election to watch. Those who watch from a distance, I'm sure hopefully this time they'll come and participate, because it's the single vote that matters. And I was telling you earlier that we're working on a video about numbers. And in the numbers, we're really trying to define the importance of that one vote.
Yeah.
And we say, you may not think that it's important, but let me tell you what it actually means.
Yeah.
Because to get a single seat in Parliament, probably in the next elections, we'll only need 40,000 people. Yeah. That's not a lot of people. That's half the FNB stadium.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of people at all.
It's a half-empty FNB.
It's a half-empty FNB, and that never looks good.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
So the one vote and the one seat is not a complicated thing to achieve, however difficult.
Yeah.
So I wish you well.
Thank you so much.
It's a lot of competition, eh?
But
I speak to them all the time, and
competition's good.
Yeah.
We all sharpen our pencils and behave.
Yeah.
Which is what South Africa needs.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you so much.
it. Eh?
All right.
There you have it, the leader of Rise Mzansi, who sang a song as Zibi. It's an interesting time. Go out and vote. Thank you.
King David Studio Podcast.